In this video, I'll be showing you how you can get set up recording guitar or bass directly into your project through an audio interface. So the way that you do that is pretty similar to the way that you would set up a regular microphone, just like how I showed you in a couple of the previous videos. Now you can do this one of two ways. So you can either set up a plain audio track, or notice that there's a guitar and bass option available as well. It doesn't really matter which one you go for. I'll just show you the audio way first. Now, just like setting up a microphone, you want to make sure your input and output preferences are correct for what you want to do, as well as the I/O buffer size. Now, if you don't really know what I'm on about with that or don't understand it, go back to the video where I showed how to set up a microphone and I explain it all there. So it's the same concept that we've got going on here, so I won't go through it a second time, but if you do want more info on that, just go back to those videos. So essentially these settings are fine for me. I've got my audio interface selected as the input source. The output source would either be your audio interface if you've got speakers connected up to it, for example, or even built-in output. I've got this one selected here just for the purposes of recording for this video and capturing the sound, so you don't need to worry about that. And just like I explained in the video where I set up a microphone, you want to make sure that the input you select here is the same input that you're plugged into on your audio interface. So if you're plugged into input 1, for example, make sure you've got input 1 selected here so they correspond with each other. And when I click create, that opens up a new track for me. And you can see that it's picking up the guitar. Now if I turn on input monitoring here, I'll be able to hear what's coming through. And that signal that's being picked up is just a completely dry signal, just a plain signal that's being picked up from the guitar or bass, and in this case I've got guitar. Now in the same way that you would set up the gain for a microphone, you need to do the same for the guitar. If you've got no idea what setting the gain means, just go back to the videos where I set up the microphone, where I go through how to do it and why you need to do it. So I'm going to set the gain on my audio interface. So if I put it right down, I'm not getting a massive amount of signal. If I put it way up to 11, I get way too much. And as you can see, it's clipping, and as you can probably hear, it's distorting. So I need to find a nice level for it, where I've got a good amount of signal bouncing around, but also a healthy amount of headroom at the top. And I think that'll do. And just in case you're a guitar player and you're thinking, well, I want the distortion, why can't I smack the gain up here? Well, this isn't the way you go about it. That part will come a bit later. So the most important thing here is that you don't want the signal to be clipping. Now, as I said before, we're just getting a clean, dry signal from the guitar into Logic. Now, what you can do in the program is you can give yourself different tones to put on top of that signal. And the way that you select these is you go to the library, and the way that you select different tones is kind of similar to the way that you might select different sounds to play in MIDI. So if I go to electric guitar and bass, I've got different tones that I can go into here. So for example, if I go into clean guitar, this brings up a load of different tones that I can play with. And then you can just go ahead and try these out. And you can record when you've got a sound that you want, and that's basically how you do it. So just be aware that you might have to reset the gain as well, depending on what sound you've got going on. If you've got a more distorted tone selected, you might need to bring the gain down a little bit. So I'm just going to get rid of this for now. If you remember before when I opened up the track, there was a guitar and bass option. So if we click on that, that essentially just opens a new track where the guitar and bass patches come up automatically without you having to select them. But I thought I may as well just show you both ways. If you are recording guitar organically using an actual guitar amp with a microphone, then you would do the audio option. Because if you're recording with an amp, you've probably already set up your tone using the amp itself or any pedals you've got hooked up. And the microphone is basically capturing that ready-made sound, just like when you record anything else with a microphone. So use the audio option initially if you're recording with a microphone pointed to an amp. Using these tone patches in the library are really mainly for when you're recording direct into your audio interface, where it's essentially recording a dry signal straight from your guitar, and then you put these effects onto that dry signal afterwards. So if I just record something here using this patch, so I'm just going to set up a little loop here. And then what I can then do, if I want to, is I can cycle through some of the different tones in the library, and it will change the tone on the recording. And sometimes you can make some really drastic changes. And that's beneficial sometimes because it gives you a chance to try out loads of different tones afterwards on something that you've already recorded. So you can tinker with the sound until you've got something that you're happy with. And that's one advantage of recording direct into Logic. Now that's not really as possible if you've recorded using a microphone in an amp, because the sound that you will have captured is more sort of locked in, if you like. And it is what it is in terms of the sound. So you can make small changes to it with EQ and stuff, sure, but you can't drastically change the sound as much as you can with a direct recording like this. So if you're recording with an amp, make sure that you're already pretty happy with the tone that you've got coming out of it, because the microphone will basically be capturing that sound. Is it better to record with an amp and mic or go direct with an audio interface? Well, that's probably a debate for another day, really. But in this video, I've shown you how you can essentially get started with recording your guitar or bass.